Chapter 10. The Attack. Autumn darkened towards winter, and tall rains fell hard and long. The trees of Rushing Wood were dark sentinels now, like cold old men with nowhere to go. They groaned in the wind. Sleet and hail swept in across the moors. The mornings were dim and noons were dull. The nights fell hungrily on the days. Despite the efforts of the squirrels to make Jim feel strong and the ravens' campaign to make him fit, Jim had been forced to chase his hat, his scarf, his bag, his keys and his wallet, which Korax pinched from his pocket. And despite his fish-rich diet, the coming of winter drove Jim down to a desperate place. Suzanne and Aubrey could see that he was sinking. He never laughed. He could barely eat half his trout. The doctors gave him pills to take, but they only seemed to make him numb. They gave him pills to help him sleep, and pills to wake him up, and pills which were supposed to make him happier, but nothing helped. Aubrey knew that the Yoot had Jim in its grip, but Aubrey did not know how badly his father was suffering. Every day now, from the moment he woke up, Jim had to listen to the Yoot. "You have failed him," it whispered to him. "Your life is a wreck. You're making Aubrey and Suzanne very unhappy. Why don't you leave them to get on with their lives without being weighed down by a sad sack like you?" "Have you thought of going away?" the Yoot hissed. The most cunning and deadly part of the Yoot's attack on Jim was that Jim did not know where it came from. He had no concept of the Yoot. He thought the Yoot's voice was just his thoughts in his head. Because the rest of his mind was in such a turmoil of misery, the Yoot's voice was becoming the only thing he could hear clearly. "Have you thought of getting out of this mess you're making?" said the Yoot, disguised as Jim's thoughts. Every day Jim fought that voice. He tried not to listen to it. He tried not to believe it, but the Yoot's whispers never stopped. On the first night of the school Christmas holidays, when everyone else in the country seemed so excited and joyful, and carols played everywhere, and the town was strung with twinkling lights, Jim realised he could take no more. The Yoot had asked him what sort of Christmas he could offer Aubrey. Did his wonderful son really deserve such a tortured man hanging around him, ruining Christmas and killing everyone's happiness? "The sooner you go away, the sooner Suzanne and Aubrey will be able to start their new life," the Yoot told him. "Come away, Jim. This has gone on too long now. It's time for you to leave. You must do the right thing for your family." "All right," Jim said at last, "all right. They'll be better off when I'm gone. I know they'll be sad at first, but Suzanne and Aubrey are all that matters. It is true, and it's time I got out of their way." In the early evening, Jim pulled on his coat. "I'm just going for a walk," he said to Suzanne. She and Aubrey were making Christmas decorations. "Oh," Suzanne said, surprised. It was not much of an evening for a walk. The clouds were low and heavy with snow, and there was an eerie yellow light in the sky. "Wouldn't you like to stay and give us a hand instead? Look what Aubrey's making." Aubrey was covered in glue and glitter, coloured tissue paper and tinsel. "I am the human Christmas tree," he boomed at his father. "Lay your presents at my feet, or I will climb down your chimney." Jim laughed weakly. "See, they're so happy, just the two of them," the Yoot whispered in Jim's ear. "The only sad thing here is you. Help them, Jim. Leave them to their happiness." "Very good, Aubrey," Jim said. "You're the best human Christmas tree in the world." He hugged Aubrey hard and kissed him. "Well done, darling," he said to Suzanne. "You're wonderful. You're so kind. And I love you. I love you both so much." Now he kissed Suzanne and hugged her too. "Just going for a little walk," he said. "Things will get better. I know they will. Don't wait up for me. I need a good long walk." And before they could say anything else, Jim hurried out of the house. He rushed down the lane. "Well done, Jim," the Yoot whispered to him. "You've done the hard part. The rest is easy. And remember, it's all for them. It's all for them. You're doing it for your wife and son." And now the Yoot began telling him where to go. "Take the path along the edge of the wood and follow it straight up to the moors." Jim strode along as fast as he could go. His nose ran and tears filled his eyes. He was sobbing so much that he weaved from side to side. Aubrey and Suzanne carried on making decorations, but they were both a bit quiet now. "Dad didn't look great," Aubrey said after a while. No, said Suzanne, poor man. He's trying so hard. I'm very proud of him. Me too. And he's supposed to take exercise, said Aubrey. Yes, Suzanne agreed. She was frowning, but she made an effort and smiled brightly. Yes, exactly, and he'll sleep well when he's had a good walk. Now, who wants some hot buttered crumpets with butter and honey? Yay, crumpets, Aubrey sang out, and the two of them smiled at each other. Suzanne went into the kitchen and put the crumpets in the toaster. Aubrey ran upstairs to his room and stared out of the window at the wood. His heart was beating fast, and there was a pulse in his chest and a hot feeling in his stomach. Something felt wrong. Suzanne took the crumpets out of their packet. She fitted 4 of them into the toaster and pushed the rack down. She stared out of the kitchen window. The night was closing in. There were no birds in the garden. Everything was still, except for the wind. Something's wrong, ran Aubrey's thoughts like a chant. Something's wrong. And suddenly he knew what it was. The Yoot is here, he thought wildly. I can feel it. The Yoot has come. It's out there in the wood or on the moor. It's close. The Yoot has come to take my dad away. Downstairs the crumpets popped out of the toaster, but Suzanne did not even notice. She was filled with worry as she stared at the gathering dark, and she suddenly wished desperately that Jim had not gone out. Aubrey, she shouted. Mum, Aubrey yelled, and he was charging down the stairs, jumping them 3 at a time. He burst into the kitchen. We've got to find Dad. We've got to bring him back. You'll remember that when she needed to move fast, Suzanne could pretty well jump over houses. Before she had drawn 3 breaths, it seemed Aubrey was no longer a human Christmas tree. He was being bundled out of the front door wearing his coat, shoes and hat. He had an impression of his mother zipping round the room. She seemed to have 3 pairs of hands, 2 of them dressing him, 2 dressing her, and 2 grabbing her keys, a torch and her phone. Aubrey knew his mother had been a marathon runner before he was born. She could sprint too. She always won the mother's race on sports day at school. But he had never seen her in action like this. Below him, her feet were pounding faster and faster. In seconds, they reached the end of the road where 3 paths divided. One went into the trees, one went down to the stream, and the last path ran along the edge of the wood up towards the moors. In the car park where the paths began, Aubrey could just make out a magnificent pheasant in the gloom. It shouted, "Cock, cock!" Suzanne paused. Which way do you think he went? Aubrey did not hesitate. Ever since he had told Athena Noctua that he would fight the Yoot, he had had a sense of it out there somewhere. Now he could feel it, like the heat of a fire close. Up, he cried, take that path along the edge of the wood. Cock, cock, crowed the pheasant, bobbing at them. In his mind, Aubrey heard it say in a clucky rush, About 15 minutes ago, 1 man, 1 Yoot, going for the moors. Be quick. They were off again. Suzanne swerved up the 3rd path. Her feet leapt from rock to rock. As the path became steeper, she seemed to go faster. Soon the wood was thinning, and the fields rolled by on either side. Now they were into the upper part of the wood, the trees and bushes swirling around them in a dark blur. Night was coming down, the darkness gathering huge and fast. Suzanne was breathing hard, but she did not slow down. Her torch clicked, the light dancing wildly in front of them as she ran on and up as the path became steeper and steeper and the trees hunched low. It was a wild ride for Aubrey. Bouncing around on his mother's back was like riding a flying horse. Suzanne's arms clamped the backs of his knees and she held him tight. At the top of the wood, the path flattened. Ridges and shoulders of land folded away into nothingness. They had reached the moor. The moor is wild country, haunted with winds which have lived there since the beginning of time. In all those centuries, Aubrey felt, no one had ever come up here on a night as grim as this. Suzanne stopped. Where now, do you think? Aubrey closed his eyes. He shut out the cold and he shut out the moans of the wind. He felt as though the monster was all around him now, like a beast circling just out of sight.